Today we're talking about 7 wide receivers who are about to explode in fantasy football, and you should try and trade for them before week 3. These are the guys that I would consider are the best buy low wide receivers in all of fantasy football right now, and your league mates probably don't know about. And let's start with Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars, because this is the perfect possible scenario happening right now through 2 weeks of the season. This is what I wish for in the offseason heading into week 3, a perfect buy low candidate. Now, before we get into why that is, let's just remind you, right? There's only been 2 weeks this year. Let's just remind you how good this guy was with Mac Jones to end last year in 6 games. 22.8 fantasy points per game. Was the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football. Over 11 targets per game. 98 receiving yards per game during this stretch. I mean, he basically was averaging, again, just under 100 yards. He was getting like 7.5 receptions per game. Again, all with Mac Jones in a terrible offense without Liam Cohen at the time. And now everything has been upgraded. Trevor Lawrence, new coach, somewhat better offensive line. And that's exactly why Brian Thomas in many of your leagues was taken at the 1-2 turn in fantasy football, meaning he was a top 15 overall pick in most drafts. And honestly, right now, I still view him as a top 20 overall player. Not much has changed for me. But boy, oh boy, are people panicking based off the first 2 weeks. Remember in week 1, he had just 1 catch for 11 yards. He was able to score on a rushing touchdown to salvage his box score, but overall the usage wasn't pretty. Then he comes out in week 2, and everybody's panicking about Brian Thomas Jr. Wrongfully, in my opinion. He only catches 4 balls for 48 yards. Now, the good thing was he had 12 targets in this game, but the reports out of that game were like, okay, he was going over the middle of the field and he wasn't being physical. He basically let the team down, dropped the touchdown, dropped the 4th down play that would have iced the game for them, as he didn't look as comfortable over the middle of the field out of the slot with physical contact. Now, what this breaks down to is Brian Thomas, this was the usage, right? The production overall, not great, but the usage so far, week 1, ran 100% of the routes, saw a 25% target share, very good. Week 2, 96% of the routes, saw a team high 27% target share. He now leads this Jacksonville Jaguars team through 2 weeks with over 8. Let me show you right now. Courtesy of Ryan Heath right here on Twitter with a team high 26% target share. That would be a borderline top 10 rate in the NFL right now. He also points out that he nearly scored at the back of the end zone, but only got 1 foot in, and then he dropped another would-be touchdown around the goal line. He also dropped, which was a similar play, would have ended up icing the game on a 4th down. So overall, all the optics, the media attention right now, everybody's panicking about Brian Thomas after 1 catch in week 1 and then these bad plays and drops in week 2. Everybody's losing their mind. But at the end of the day, all that matters to me right now is that he's out there running every single route, and he's seen a team high 26% target share in an offense that has a new coach, has a quarterback coming back off of an injury, has some new personnel pieces that they're trying to fit in, like Diami Brown and Bretton Strange now with Evan Ingram gone, and Travis Hunter from the draft. Like, give it a couple of weeks or some time for them to all gel together. It was also reported after the game, which would have been good to know going into this, that Brian Thomas had a wrist injury going into yesterday's game. He was never put on the injury report. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jaguars receive a fine for this. So maybe throughout the week this week, you'll see that he'll be on the injury report, but he did play in that game, so I don't think he's going to miss any time. Maybe he's limited in practice in the coming weeks, but that would at least explain why going over the middle of the field twice, he wasn't going to take on a big hit, right? He knew that he had an injured wrist and he kind of shelled up. It's not great, but it gives you some explanation. At the end of the day, this is still a guy who is a top 20 overall player, in my opinion, right now in fantasy. Travis Hunter last week, we saw him play the final 40 snaps of the game on defense because the Jacksonville Jaguars lost a cornerback during that game. We've already now seen Travis Hunter basically only be used in the short to intermediate parts of the field, almost like a Kadarius Toney or Wan'Dale Robinson based on their college and even their NFL usage. That's not great. Again, that can change. It's only week 2, but as of right now, there's no serious threat in terms of Brian Thomas's intermediate to downfield targets from Travis Hunter. He's not seeing that usage at all. As of right now, this is what you want. You want a guy who literally is seeing 10 targets a game to start the season. He found the end zone already once. It's just not panning out to these 100-yard games that you saw last year. People are panicking, negative media attention. It's the perfect buy low window. I mean, look at some of these trades that are happening literally right now in fantasy football. These are as recent of an hour ago. Breece Hall, I mean, that's a fair trade either way, I would say, depending on your team needs, but I'll take Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas or Tetairoa McMillan, love both players, Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas or George Pickens, love both players, Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas or Quentin Johnson, obviously Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas or AJ Brown, Brian Thomas. I could say every single one of these names. Etienne, Rome Odunze. I want Brian Thomas over all these guys. I know Odunze's been great. I know Etienne's been great. It's been 2 weeks of the season, right? Let's give it some time. Brian Thomas, still elite usage. Somebody you should try and go buy low on. And the same could be said for Calvin Ridley, who's once again in this video. And look, we mentioned this during the end of the summer during fantasy drafts, as well as heading into week 1. We said he has a brutal week 1 matchup against Patrick Surtain and the Denver Broncos, and that's what panned out. For your first ever game ever, his quarterback Cam Ward facing the Broncos is not great. And that led to a down game for Calvin Ridley, but then he also had a tough matchup against the Rams in week 2. So far this opening season schedule, we thought it was going to be tough, and that's been the case. So a lot of people are down on Ridley, but let's back it up a little bit first, right? This was a guy who last year led the NFL in air yards. He was seeing a ton of downfield usage, but the problem was because he had terrible quarterback play. Despite that terrible quarterback play, he played in all 17 games for the second straight season and went for over 1,000 receiving yards. Again, that was despite having nearly 60% of his targets being uncatchable from terrible quarterbacks like Mason Rudolph and Will Levis last year. Now, the only good thing to come from those quarterbacks last year was the fact that the Titans ended up getting the number 1 overall pick and a new quarterback in Cam Ward, who, if you look at his box scores so far, you might look at Cam Ward and go, oof, he hasn't been all that good so far. Just 143 passing yards per game. Yes, I just mentioned he's had 2 brutal matchups, but he's been making some very impressive throws that make you go, okay, this guy actually is a solid quarterback. He's composed in the pocket. When you look at some of these other numbers here, like his ability to escape the pocket, 12th in the league so far through 2 weeks. Time to throw, 9th in the league so far through 2 weeks. That's pretty good in terms of how quickly he's getting the ball out. Sometimes that's force, sometimes that's scheme production, but these are all indicating or good things, especially when you pair that with his film so far, that through 2 weeks, I feel completely comfortable with Cam Ward, especially compared to what his numbers are showing and compared to the matchup. So what has this gotten you from Calvin Ridley? Well, it's gotten you so far, decent volume, not great, 8 targets and 6 targets, and it's only landed him 7 catches for 27 yards in week 1, 57 yards in week 2. He's finished as the wide receiver 56, wide receiver 57. Right now, when you look at your top 50 overall wide receivers in fantasy football, Calvin Ridley is probably not going to be in there. So right now, people don't feel good about starting Calvin Ridley if he's not even a top 50 overall player in fantasy football, right? He's the wide receiver 58, as you can see right here. Again, a small 2-week sample with some brutal matchups, but people are probably in your league going to start benching Calvin Ridley. Going to feel not good about putting him in the flex spot. Now is the time to attack because this is still the number 1 receiver who is now going to go into, hopefully, the easier part of his schedule. He goes from facing the Rams and Broncos, who are probably 2 top 10 defenses, to now he gets the Colts. Okay, we know that the Colts you can put up points on. We just saw that last week. Then he gets the Texans, another tough defensive line, but then things start to get a little bit easier here. You're getting matchups against the Colts again, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Patriots. These are all league average to maybe even below average, probably in some of those cases, defenses. Things are going to start to open up for Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward, and now we're going to get to see Cam Ward start to hit some strides as he's getting more NFL reps. So far through 2 games, Calvin Ridley is easily leading the team as their number 1 receiver, running 92% of the routes. Nobody else is even at 80%, and leading the team with a 25% target share. Again, the competition here, he is by far and away the most talented wide receiver on this team. Alec Imanor has shown some nice things as an ex-vertical receiver at times. He had the touchdown catch last week on that crazy Cam Ward play. Other than that, though, I mean, like, if this middle round rookie is your biggest competition, Tyler Lockett at this age, Van Jefferson has never really done much in the NFL. I'm not that worried about what's happening right now with Calvin Ridley through 2 weeks. I have him in a couple of leagues. I continue to plan to start him in the flex spot in these multiple flex 12-man leagues, or at least hold him on my bench depending on who else I have on my team. In terms of trades you can get done right now for Calvin Ridley, I mean, some of these are kind of funny. Dak Prescott for Calvin Ridley, give me Dak. Mahomes for Calvin Ridley, give me Calvin Ridley. Or Dak Prescott for Calvin Ridley, give me Ridley. Mahomes versus Ridley, give me Ridley. Even Jerry Jeudy's here. I want Calvin Ridley. This one's interesting. Calvin Ridley versus Chris Olave is kind of close. As of right now, it's kind of a coin flip. They're pretty equal. It's probably not even worth doing the trade. Calvin Ridley over Isaiah Pacheco for sure. Definitely over Mooney. Definitely over Harold Fannin. When it comes to Jordan Mason, based on this injury right now, I want Jordan Mason there. He is somebody who is absolutely skyrocketing up rankings. But for the most part, you can get some good deals done for Calvin Ridley right now. And if you want to see where Calvin Ridley will rank in my top 50 overall rankings for week 3, you can check it out completely free with the link in the description below, or just type in right now on your device, fantasyrankingsfree.com. That'll take you to this page. You enter your email, and then I'll just send you the top 50 rankings for this week. It'll be updated every single Thursday and then Sunday morning. Be sure to check your spam and promotional folders as well. And if you do want access to my top 150 overall rankings, all my other tools for the waiver wire tiers, for game-by-game matchup notes, the ability to ask me questions one-on-one, that's why I built the Fantasy Blueprint. You can join 10,000 other people right now in the Blueprint with the link in the description below, or learning more at jointheblueprint.com. All right, the next player we have to talk about, we kind of just mentioned him when comparing him to Calvin Ridley rest of the season, is going to be Chris Olave. And I should call out one more thing. In that Fantasy Blueprint as well, you get my top 150 overall rankings, which helps exactly for videos like this when it comes to trades. I rank the top 150 overall players, updated every single week. So if we were to redraft again, that's how they would be ranked, and it just shows you exactly where the value lies and who's a better player to trade for compared to guys on your team. All right, I just wanted to make sure you knew about that. Now, Chris Olave is somebody you should absolutely be targeting right now, in my opinion. He's not a sell high. He is somebody that you want to go out there, or sell low, I guess you can say. You want to buy this guy. Look, in 2023, the last time we saw him healthy, 87 catches, over 1,100 receiving yards. It's not like he had a good quarterback. Then he had the concussions last year. He was injured. He basically didn't get to play a half a season, let alone a full season. But now he's healthy so far through 2 weeks. And again, he doesn't have a good quarterback, but the quarterback play there so far has been serviceable. Now, what this has led to for Chris Olave in this Saints offense, where they're throwing the ball a lot more, and we'll get into that in a second, is week 1, 13 targets, week 2, 10 targets. He's clearly the number one receiver and number one option on this team. 7 receptions, 6 catches. The problem is he hasn't found the end zone. So he's putting up decent fantasy days of 12.5 and 11.4 points without finding the end zone. Now this past week, he absolutely was murking. He looked fantastic out there. He was open twice in the end zone. One time, it was just a clear-cut miss from his quarterback. The other time, his quarterback just didn't see him. So that quarterback being Spencer Rattler. Chris Olave is getting open. He's making plays, and he's being used in the slot a ton more, which is leading to these quick targets, these easily catchable targets. A 31% target share leads the wide receivers in the entire team right now. Next closest is Rashid Shaheed, who's also having a nice season so far for fantasy to start. Scored a touchdown last week, 19% target share, but Olave is the clear-cut number one in this offense. Kellen Moore is using Olave in very creative ways. Olave has already seen a career high in terms of the first 2 weeks of the season in his snaps out of the slot. And Olave seeing this usage out of the slot is just leading to a lot more easy to complete passes for Spencer Rattler, a lot more PPR upside. These 7 to 8 yard completions downfield also open up the ability for yards after the catch, which we really haven't seen unlocked just yet, but we know he has that in his bag. And I mean, here's the thing about Spencer Rattler, right? This guy last year was thrown into games mid-season and through the middle parts of games, right? Had to come on in relief for some bad quarterback play and injuries, and he didn't look great last year by any means. Just 57% of his passes were completed, but now he has a better coach in Kellen Moore there, and he also has an offseason where at least for a couple of weeks to months, they were able to build somewhat of an offense around him. I know he was in a quarterback competition in camp, but still, it's way better than just getting thrown into a game like week 10, middle part of the game on a Thursday night, right? When you have absolutely no game plan for you. So far right now, Spencer Rattler is throwing the ball the 4th most times in the NFL. He's throwing the ball 40 times per game, and the Saints are probably not going to be a good defense or offense overall this season, and that's going to lead to them having to play from behind. And Kellen Moore on offense is running a ton of plays right now. It's making you miss him in Philadelphia based on what their offense is currently looking like in the passing attack. When it comes down to it, there are 2 wide receivers in this offense that you have to worry about for fantasy, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Juwan Johnson is also emerging in the tight end room after 2 good weeks, and obviously Alvin Kamara is going to catch some checkdowns, but based on everything we're seeing, a 31% target share so far for Chris Olave, that's something I'm going to buy into on a very pass-happy offense right now. If this guy's going to see 8 to 10 targets per game and eventually going to start finding the end zone, week in and week out, he's quickly going to become a borderline top 24 wide receiver. And you can get him for an affordable price right now. I mean, Dalton Kincaid, I'll make that deal. Olave for Javonte Williams, depends on your team. I probably keep Javonte there. For Kyle Pitts, give me Olave. For Quentin Johnson, give me Olave, right? For Travis Hunter, I want Olave now. All these names, Harold Fanning, give me Olave. Between him and Pickens, it's kind of close. I'll probably side with Pickens there. His teammate, Juwan Johnson, Olave, right? There's a ton of trades that you can get done right now, 1 for 1. I'd kind of just show the 1 for 1 deals because it's just easier to see 1 for 1. But obviously, there's going to be some 2 for 1s, 3 for 2s that you can get done to get Chris Olave. Now, we mentioned Kellen Moore in the Philadelphia Eagles offense, and let's talk about those guys. I want to talk about both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith right now, who are players that I would consider guys that I'm going to go out there, especially A.J. Brown, and just get a feel for. Get a feel for the person who has the manager in my league that has A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Are they panicking? Odds are if they took A.J. Brown in the 2nd round, they might be a little bit. But let's not forget the Eagles were historically run heavy last year, and A.J. Brown still averaged 16.7 points per game when healthy, top 12 in fantasy football. Devonta Smith, also a top 15 receiver, seeing 15.3 points per game when healthy, right? And also just to mention right now, Dallas Goedert missed last week. He's potentially going to miss more time moving forward, so the target share should condense even more. That's at least worth noting for these next couple of weeks. Now, so far through 2 weeks this season in Philadelphia, it's looked pretty sluggish. It has not looked good. It's made you very worrisome if you have any pieces of this passing attack and basically anybody in the offense that's not named Saquon Barkley. What did we see in week 1? We saw Jahan Dotson on Thursday night to open the season. He had a big catch. He led the way with 59 yards. Tight end Dallas Goedert was 2nd, and then Saquon Barkley was 3rd. It was Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown combining for just 24 total yards on 4 receptions. In that game, it was very famous coming out of it that A.J. Brown didn't see a target until late in the 4th quarter in the entire game. So then you're thinking, okay, the diva wide receiver maybe he's going to get mad. I say diva in quotes. That's what people are saying. So that means maybe something was said, or moving forward into week 2, they're going to get that guy the ball more. And in week 2, the Super Bowl matchup in the game of the week at that 4:30 slot, you saw 4 catches for 53 yards for Devonta Smith, 5 catches for 27 yards for A.J. Brown. Now, overall in this game, there was only 15 total completions. Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 22 times. You factor in throwaways, like he's only throwing the ball 20 times. So if overall 9 of these, almost 50%, are going to these 2 wide receivers in terms of the catches, then you factor in their targets of 6 and 14 14, those two wide receivers were accounting for like 60 to 65% of the targets in this game. Okay, that's at least getting back on track, but all people see is the end of game box scores where it's just 5 catches for 27 yards, 7 fantasy points, right? 4 catches, 53 yards, 9.3 fantasy points. You look at Jalen Hurts barely throwing for 100 yards and you start to panic. You see the 9 Jalen Hurts carries, the 20 plus carries for Saquon Barkley. A lot of these 9 carries were tush pushes as well. So it's converting on 3rd and 4th and short, but you're converting and then the clock keeps running, right? Which allows the game to end quicker, less targets, less pass attempts. That's exactly why in this game, you only got 22 pass attempts for Jalen Hurts and not a lot of time of possession for these wide receivers to make some plays. So I understand why people are panicking. The first game was in prime time on Thursday night. Everybody saw how bad those wide receivers performed. The second game was game of the week in prime time, Super Bowl rematch. Everybody sees the wide receivers start to catch some passes, but not get a lot of yardage downfield. But I would like to at least point out what Ryan Heath shows right here. The production wasn't much there in a grinded out game, but the target shares came back to normal. In week 1, AJ Brown's target share was 4%. It was an elite 36% in week 2. In week 1, Devonta Smith's was 13%. In week 2, 27.3%. Again, at the end of the day, once they start throwing the ball more, and yes, they're not only going to throw 15 to 20 times a game, there's going to be some games where they're pushed and have to throw 30, 35, maybe even 40 times. That's where you're going to get these blow-up games. It could be as soon as week 3 for Philadelphia. So when people start to see that Jalen Hurts, again, barely at 100 yards last week, through 2 games now this season, Jalen Hurts, if we scroll down to it on Player Profiler, is averaging 22 pass attempts per game, really low, 28th in the NFL, just 126 yards per game, 31st in the NFL. I don't think this is going to hold up. I think this is going to be a very run-first offense, but we've seen it in past years, right? Even when they're a run-first team. Just a couple of years ago in 2023, 3,800 passing yards, right? 500 attempts. Even last year was 361 pass attempts, way more than he has this year. He's going to regress to throwing the ball a little bit more, and these wide receivers whose target shares came back in week 2, their production's going to follow. We could specifically look at A.J. Brown. I mean, these are some deals you can get done right now. J.K. Dobbins, all day I'm doing that deal. Amarion Hampton, all day I want A.J. Brown. Emeka Egbuka, I know he scored 3 touchdowns in 2 games. Give me the alpha A.J. Brown on his team, right? T. Higgins, I'll take A.J. Brown now with Joe Burrow hurt. Kenneth Walker, give me A.J. Brown. Quentin Johnson, obviously A.J. Brown, right? Ladd McConkey with his new competition. People weren't expecting Keenan Allen to be this good. A.J. Brown, I'll take there as well. A.J. Brown is still, to me, a top 24 overall player in fantasy football and somebody you should be trying to buy low on as soon as possible. And for the second straight week, I'm just going to remind you that you should try and buy low on Rashee Rice, especially if Rashee Rice is on a fantasy manager in your league's team who is 0-2, maybe even 1-1. They drafted Rashee Rice in the 5th, 6th, maybe 7th round of their fantasy draft, hoping that they would be 2-0 at this point. If they're 0-2, he's not helping them the next 4 weeks, and they need wins. You can try and get Rashee right now. Just a reminder how bad the Chiefs offense has been the first 2 weeks of the season. Mahomes 24 of 39, 258 yards. That's not terrible numbers in week 1. The efficiency, just 6.5 yards per attempt, wasn't there though. 10 receptions on 16 targets for Hollywood Brown, 99 yards. Then you have like your other receivers being Juju, Kareem Hunt, Tyquan Thornton, right? At that point, you basically have no playmakers. Marquise Brown showed us in week 2, though he did get banged up in this game, that he's not the guy who can go out there and have 10 catches a week. 5 catches for 30 yards, just 6 yards per attempt, playing out of the slot for a lot of that. Tyquan Thornton had the big touchdown late, and Travis Kelce made some plays, didn't make some plays, right? The drop touchdown. Overall, Travis Kelce, as we've already mentioned, is not the same Travis Kelce who was a couple of years ago in his prime. This offense needs players. They need Worthy healthy. Who knows when that's going to be? Maybe this week, maybe next week, but they need Rashee Rice, an alpha number 1 receiver for Patrick Mahomes in the middle of the field. And just as a reminder, through his first 3 games last year, he was a top 5 receiver in fantasy, top 3 actually, 10 targets a game, 96 receiving yards per game according to RotoViz, and over 21 PPR points per game. Sorry, that was my alarm going off. We'll just play right through that. But anyways, nothing has changed in terms of like the health of Rashee Rice. He dealt with a groin injury in the preseason, but he was practicing and playing in preseason games and was fine. It's just a suspension. It's not like he's coming off of some massive knee injury like a Brandon Ayuk that we have to worry if he's even going to be himself. He's going to come back and hit the ground running. He was just playing in the preseason and looking good in camp. You look at this Chiefs backfield, just like last year, it doesn't look like the backfield is going to be saving this team. Isaiah Pacheco doesn't look like he's getting a lot of usage as of right now. If you have to lean on Kareem Hunt and a 7th round rookie at all this season and Brashad Smith, you're probably screwed in terms of the running attack, meaning you're going to have to pass the ball. So who are you going to pass the ball to? Well, we've already seen Marquise Brown this past week when he has a full week and the defense has a full week to game plan against him. He can't be a number 1. Juju can't be a number 1. The rookie Jalen Royals has been banged up. It's going to be Xavier Worthy, and it's going to be number 1 Rashee Rice going back to his slot role where he absolutely dominated last year, where Worthy dominated in that role towards the end of the season. He's going to be the slot middle of the field, yards after the catch wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes. So if you can get Rashee Rice, and if you're in a spot, especially if you're 2-0 or 1-1 and you look like your team's good, you've scored a lot of points and got unlucky in your 1 loss this year, to go get Rashee Rice, go get him. He'll be on your bench for another month, and then you're going to have literally a week in and week out top 12 fantasy receiver. All of these guys, Javonte, Amarion, RJ Harvey, DJ Moore, T. Higgins. I want Rashee Rice over all of these guys right now. Now, before we get into the next wide receiver that you should consider buying low on, I don't know if you know this, but football is back, and so is your chance to cash in like never before. With my partners, DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and your game day instincts can help you score real money fast. So now here's what you need to know.
Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks and unlock the upside every snap brings.
And the better your calls, the bigger the payouts. Look, there's no gimmicks, no convoluted rules. It's just you, your reads, and your shot at big returns. Now here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. So all that's left for you to do is download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL, make the right call, and ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. All right, now I want to talk about one that maybe some people, including yourself, just have forgot about this guy, because it's Jordan Addison. This guy was quietly, you might have already forgot, I know we're 3 weeks into this year and it was a long off season, he was quietly one of the best fantasy wide receivers in 2024 when he was actually on the field. Check this out. According to RotoViz last year, and I'll pull it up in a better view for you, check this out right here. In his final 10 games of the season, so from week 9 on, Jordan Addison was averaging 16.3 fantasy points per game on 7.6 targets per game, 64 yards per game. He was putting up very similar and in some weeks better numbers than his teammate Justin Jefferson. He was literally a top 10 wide receiver in points per game the second half of the season last year. But unfortunately, he started off this year suspended for 3 games, right? And then the Vikings offense has looked absolutely terrible, so people are concerned about touching any pieces of that offense right now, because through 2 games, JJ McCarthy looks bad. Now he's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, and Carson Wentz of all quarterbacks has to be put in there, right? So far, JJ McCarthy, if we look at where he ranks overall in the NFL, adjusted yards per attempt right now, 34th amongst quarterbacks. If you just look at all of his efficiency metrics, expected points added, EPA, like the number 1 stat for efficiency, 34th amongst quarterbacks. You've seen it on film right now. You've watched these games in prime time. 7 out of 8 quarters, he's looked very bad. And now you have Carson Wentz coming in, which honestly could be a quarterback upgrade here, like compared to what we've seen from JJ McCarthy and what we've seen Kevin O'Connell do with past veterans like Joshua Dobbs and Nick Mullins coming into this offense. You also factor in, like, I mean, Adam Thielen hasn't done anything since they traded for him. I'm not worried about Jordan Addison's role because of that. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is there as the number 1, but like, what else is here? TJ Hawkinson has looked like absolute dust since returning from his knee injury middle of the season or towards the end of the season in November last year. So far to start this year, hasn't had it. Maybe that's a quarterback problem with JJ McCarthy. We'll find out. But it's just Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, which we just showed you last year when Justin Jefferson was out there. Addison was still averaging over 16 fantasy points per game. So I just think this is one of those guys, just like Rashee Rice. If you're 1-1, if you're 2-0, I mean, honestly, even if you're 0-2 and you think you have a good team with a lot of points scored and you've just been unlucky, try and get Jordan Addison. He's going to miss 1 more game, then he's going to come back, and it's been 2 weeks. People are panicking. Week 1 with the Lions, everybody was panicking about their offense. The offense in Minnesota can get turned around as soon as week 3. Some deals you can get done right now are Nick Chubb. I would sell Nick Chubb off of a pretty bad game in prime time. Yeah, he had the 25-yard touchdown run. Other than that, all of his runs this year have been really bad. Trade him for Jordan Addison. Trade Pacheco for Jordan Addison. I would trade Josh Downs for Addison, right? His teammate TJ Hawkinson. All these guys. Definitely not Tyler Warren. Don't do that, right? I wouldn't trade Amarian Hampton or Cortland Sutton yet, but some of those other names that we just mentioned, I would trade them away right now to go get Jordan Addison. So these are the 6 to 7, if you count Devonta Smith, wide receivers that I think you should buy low on right now in fantasy. And if you want to see the running back version of this video, the 5 running backs before week 3 that are about to explode, you need to trade for them now before that happens, because then you won't be able to trade for them. You can check them out right here in this video. I think it's going to help you out a ton.